For decades, aerospace engineering represented one of the most demanding institutional environments in modern industry. The margins for error were microscopic, the cost of failure was existential, and the governance structures inside major aerospace firms reflected that reality. Authority flowed upward from engineering judgment. Safety culture was not a slogan, it was a survival requirement. Yet catastrophic failure rarely arrives as a sudden collapse. It emerges gradually, as incentives drift, oversight weakens, and governance architectures quietly reassign what matters. The decline of engineering primacy inside Boeing is best understood not as a story of individual negligence or isolated technical error, but as a principal agent, failure embedded in institutional design. To see this clearly, we must abandon the comforting narrative that disasters are caused by a few bad decisions. Instead, we must examine how systems teach people which decisions are rewarded, which are punished, and which are quietly ignored. In a well-designed safety-critical organization, the principal, whether shareholders, regulators, or the public delegates, authority to agents who possess specialized knowledge, engineers, test pilots, quality controllers, and safety officers are granted decision rights because their expertise reduces risk. Governance exists to protect that delegation, not override it. But principal-agent problems emerge when the metrics used to evaluate agents no longer reflect the true objective of the system. When financial performance becomes the dominant proxy for organizational health, engineering judgment slowly loses institutional protection. This shift does not occur through a single directive. It happens through compounding design choices, performance incentives that privilege cost containment, timelines that penalize delay more than uncertainty, and reporting structures that elevate financial managers over technical authorities. Over time, agents adapt rationally. Engineers learn which objections stall their careers. Managers learn which risks can be reframed as acceptable variance. Oversight bodies learn which issues are too costly to escalate. The system does not demand silence explicitly. It rewards compliance implicitly. In aerospace, this incentive drift is especially dangerous because failure modes are nonlinear. Small compromises accumulate invisibly until the system crosses a threshold. At that point, outcomes appear sudden, but they are anything but unpredictable. From an institutional perspective, the critical failure is not that errors occur. Errors are inevitable in complex systems. The failure is that governance mechanisms no longer surface those errors with sufficient authority to halt production. Internal controls degrade when they become subordinated to throughput targets. Safety reviews lose force when their findings are treated as advisory rather than determinative. Independent oversight erodes when organizational distance collapses between regulators and the firms they supervise. This is not corruption in the conventional sense. It is structural normalization. As oversight becomes internalized, the organization begins auditing itself against metrics it designed to favor speed, cost efficiency, and market competitiveness. Engineering concerns are translated into financial language, stripped of urgency, and absorbed as manageable risk. At that point, catastrophic failure is no longer an anomaly. It is an output. The principal-agent problem intensifies when responsibility diffuses across layers. Decision-makers do not experience the downside of failure proportionally. Risk becomes externalized to passengers, to regulators, to the public, while rewards remain internal. When agents are rewarded for meeting delivery schedules and margin targets, and punished for delay or escalation, behavior aligns accordingly. This alignment is not immoral. It is rational within the system provided. The tragedy is not that individuals acted poorly. It is that the system taught them how to act. One of the most corrosive aspects of governance failure is the illusion of control. Complex organizations often believe that more reporting equals more safety. In reality, reporting without authority is cosmetic. Dashboards proliferate, metrics multiply, but decision rights remain concentrated where financial performance is measured most visibly. Safety becomes a checkbox rather than a veto. When that happens, internal dissent does not disappear. It becomes strategically muted. Concerns are phrased cautiously. Warnings are softened. Worst-case scenarios are labeled unlikely edge cases. Each step feels reasonable in isolation. Collectively, they hollow out the system. This is how engineering cultures collapse without ever announcing their demise. From the outside, catastrophe invites moral outrage. From the inside, it often feels like a tragic surprise. But institutional analysis reveals a more uncomfortable truth. These outcomes are frequently predictable long before they occur. They are written into incentive structures, governance hierarchies, and oversight design. The lesson here extends far beyond aerospace. Any organization operating in safety-critical or trust-dependent environments faces the same risk when governance drifts toward financial abstraction. Healthcare systems, infrastructure operators, financial institutions, public agencies. Wherever decision-makers are insulated from downside risk, and wherever performance metrics replace professional judgment, principal-agent failures become embedded. The solution is not cultural slogans or post-crisis reforms. It is structural. It requires re-anchoring authority to expertise, restoring independence to oversight, and ensuring that those who bear responsibility also bear consequences. Absent those corrections, failure does not arrive as a question of if, but when. In institutional systems, disasters are rarely the result of rogue actors. They are the logical endpoint of architectures that quietly taught people what mattered most. For continued institutional analysis of governance structures, incentive systems, and organizational failure modes, subscribe.